When it comes to Kendrick Lamar and when it comes to Drake, the entire Iceman rollout has officially entered another phase. The Ice Pyramid is here, the theatrics are escalating, and now there's new insider information revealing what this album is supposedly centered around. So if you want to know what Iceman is actually shaping up to be, leave a like, subscribe, and let's get straight into it. Because yes, diss tracks are reportedly coming, and yes, the main target is exactly who everybody already expects.
Before we go any further though, Drake posting giant blocks of ice somehow revived his fan base overnight, and now they're aggressively trying to shut down every honest discussion about where this project is actually headed. So leave a like, subscribe, and keep the conversation alive. Because the Drake stans have honestly reached a new level of delusion. People are out here worshipping frozen cubes without hearing a single new song. No snippet, no bars, no preview, just ice. And somehow that alone was enough to send the internet into meltdown mode. The whole Ice Cube spectacle clearly appeals to Drake's most impressionable fans and the entire streamer ecosystem that's helped prop up his relevance over the last few years. But honestly, the stunt itself isn't even the interesting part. What actually matters is what's happening behind the scenes with the album itself. Because while everyone else is busy obsessing over ice sculptures, almost nobody is actually focusing on what this project reportedly contains. And once you look at the information coming from credible insiders, the direction of Iceman becomes almost painfully predictable.
Because regardless of whether you think the ice rollout is clever marketing or the corniest thing Drake has ever done, none of the theatrics matter if the music itself doesn't land. And according to multiple industry sources, the music is supposedly centered around one thing: revenge. This album is reportedly being built as a giant score-settling project, a personal retaliation album aimed at everyone Drake believes contributed to the collapse of his public image over the last 2 years. And honestly, that direction feels exactly like what everybody expected all along. Whether you think the ice stunt is genius or embarrassing, honestly shouldn't matter. Because a block of ice is not music, a hidden hard drive is not an album, and an elaborate cinematic rollout built entirely around spectacle instead of sound is not what hip-hop usually rewards in the long run. Drake's fanbase got excited over Frozen Water, not because they heard incredible bars or groundbreaking production. That alone tells you everything about where both Drake and his audience currently are mentally.
And here's the strange part. Drake didn't even have to preview any actual music. He just built giant blocks of ice, hid something inside them, and suddenly people started treating it like a historic cultural moment, which honestly says more about Drake's audience than it does about Drake's artistry. Because this is exactly how Drake built so much influence over the years. Presentation constantly overpowering substance, while fans accepted the rollout itself as entertainment, regardless of what the music sounded like afterward. Now, to be fair, one thing I will acknowledge is that the Iceman rollout clearly has more planning behind it than most Drake eras in recent memory. The episodes, the symbolism, the ice structures, the hidden imagery, there's obviously a coordinated vision behind the rollout itself. And that at least shows Drake understands this moment requires more effort than simply surprise dropping another album and expecting automatic praise. The problem is that presentation can only carry things so far before the actual music has to justify the spectacle.
And so far, the music itself is completely absent from the conversation. Every teaser, every cinematic moment, every rollout stunt has pointed toward the album with anybody actually hearing what it sounds like. The only concrete detail Drake has offered is the idea that once the ice melts, a hard drive containing the release date will appear. We are literally waiting for Frozen Water to melt in 2026 just to learn when the album might drop. And somehow, this is being treated like revolutionary rollout strategy from one of the biggest artists in music history. So instead of standing around waiting for ice to melt while Drake controls the narrative, let's focus on what the album is supposedly going to say. Because the information coming out right now comes from a source with a strong track record, somebody who accurately predicted multiple major album releases this year before they became public. And according to that insider, Drake is absolutely planning to address his enemies throughout this project.
The album is reportedly being described internally as Drake's most lyrical project yet, with the release date supposedly hidden inside the ice structure itself. But honestly, the important detail isn't the release gimmick, it's the direction of the music.
Because what insiders are describing is essentially a confrontation album, a project built around Drake targeting the people he blames for where his career and reputation currently stand. And none of this should surprise anybody paying attention. Every leaked snippet, every OVO talking point, every vague hint over the last year has been pointing directly toward this exact outcome. As for the most lyrical Drake album ever claim, we've heard this kind of hype before. During the For All the Dogs rollout, people close to Drake were saying the exact same thing. Fans got excited, expectations exploded, and then the album arrived sounding bloated and forgettable. So expecting everyone to blindly trust those claims again requires a level of faith the Iceman era honestly hasn't earned yet. Drake would need an entirely different creative process and a completely refreshed artistic vision for those promises to actually hold weight. And nothing about the rollout so far suggests that's happened.
What does feel believable, though, is the idea that Iceman may contain more diss tracks than any rap album we've ever seen. Because Drake has spent nearly 2 years collecting grudges, writing responses, revisiting old conflicts, and obsessing over the same themes repeatedly. All of that emotional baggage has to go somewhere eventually. And judging from the rollout language, the revenge themes, the cryptic posts, the Adonis clips, the Project Bot production rumors, everything points toward one thing: a full-scale Retaliation album. And honestly, this direction isn't accidental. It's probably the only commercial strategy that still makes sense for Drake right now. Because the only Drake-related content that's generated real engagement recently has been content tied directly to beef and controversy. Tracks connected to conflict still create headlines. Regular music doesn't. The audience Drake still has left seems more interested in watching the drama continue than hearing where he's evolving creatively as an artist. And that's exactly what Iceman appears designed to capitalize on.
And obviously the biggest target on this album is Kendrick Lamar. Nearly 2 years after Drake first hinted at responding, we're apparently approaching the moment where the full Retaliation finally arrives. But honestly, that timeline alone says a lot. Because if Drake truly felt confident in his response, it probably wouldn't require 2 years, multiple rollout gimmicks, and an elaborate cinematic universe just to finally release it. The delay hasn't made the comeback feel stronger, it's made the desperation behind it much more visible. But this is the deeper issue no amount of rollout theatrics can fix. Drake could theoretically create the most technically impressive diss track ever recorded. He could deliver the sharpest bars of his career, and the moment it drops, listeners are still going to filter everything through one unavoidable reality. This is the same person who took a rap battle into federal court and tried using legal systems to punish somebody for winning. You cannot attempt to legally challenge diss records and then walk back into hip-hop demanding to be taken seriously in a competitive rap context. The contradiction exists before Drake even says a single word.
And Kendrick doesn't even need to respond anymore. He can stay completely silent while the contradiction works against Drake automatically. Every diss aimed at Kendrick immediately gets compared to the lawsuit. Every aggressive bar gets filtered through the reality that Drake previously tried to redefine diss records as legal problems. The hypocrisy is built directly into the album before anybody even hears it. And Kendrick probably won't be the only target either. There's speculation Drake could address Jay-Z over the Super Bowl situation, revisit old tensions with Pusha T, throw shots toward Tyler, Schoolboy Q, Pharrell, Absol, media personalities like Joe Budden and Ebro. And outside rap entirely, LeBron James may actually end up becoming one of the biggest targets on the project too. Because based on everything Drake has hinted at publicly, LeBron seems to represent one of the deepest personal betrayals in Drake's mind throughout this entire situation.
And Drake clearly understands that spectacle is currently carrying more weight than the music itself. The smoke effects, the Adonis videos, the cinematic rollout episodes, the giant ice structures, none of it is random. Drake knows he can't simply release music normally anymore and expect the same organic excitement he used to generate. The rollout itself is compensating for damaged credibility and declining trust. The presentation is filling a gap the music alone can no longer fill. And this is the central problem with Iceman. Drake is trying to re-establish himself as a dominant voice in rap competition while simultaneously pursuing legal action that directly challenges the culture surrounding rap battles.
He wants hip-hop to take his diss tracks seriously, while also being remembered as the artist who tried making diss records legally dangerous. Those two identities fundamentally cannot coexist. And whichever version of himself Drake presents on the album, the contradiction will still be standing right behind it.
Honestly, the version of Iceman that could have genuinely changed the conversation would have been a completely different album, an introspective project, a self-aware project, something focused on growth, honesty, accountability, and understanding why the last 2 years unfolded the way they did. That's the album that could have actually shifted public perception. Instead, Drake appears to be making a revenge record fueled entirely by unresolved resentment. And historically, revenge albums built from damaged credibility rarely land the way the artist hopes they will. And throughout all the rollout theatrics and forced excitement, the lawsuit is still happening in the background, still active, still being argued in court, still constantly reminding everyone that Drake has not moved on from any of this emotionally. Which means even when Iceman finally drops, the surrounding context won't disappear. Every review, every article, every interview is still going to mention the legal situation. Drake effectively trapped this album inside that narrative before anybody even heard the music.
And Drake's own history creates another unavoidable issue here. Whenever Drake enters rap beef, he consistently shifts focus toward the women connected to his rivals, instead of only targeting the rivals themselves. Rihanna, Serena, Whitney, Savannah James, Virginia Williams. That pattern already exists publicly. And if Drake continues doing that throughout Iceman, every single bar aimed at those women is just going to reinforce exactly what Kendrick accused him of on Not Like Us. And when you really step back and examine the full picture, the entire situation becomes almost absurd. Drake is creating diss records while suing over diss records. He's trying to reclaim authority inside competitive rap culture while simultaneously challenging the legal protection surrounding that culture. He wants people to treat his bars seriously while also arguing bars themselves can create legal liability. Those positions directly contradict each other. There's no version of this where both realities comfortably coexist.
So underneath all the rollout theatrics, the ice blocks, the leaked snippets, and the cinematic episodes, the Iceman era really comes down to one simple story. Somebody who lost a major public confrontation, spent 2 years trying to undo the damage through every possible avenue, and is now re-entering the same arena with an album built entirely around unresolved bitterness from that loss. This doesn't feel like a comeback album anymore. It feels like an extension of the crash out itself. And honestly, the possible target list alone sounds exhausting. Rappers, athletes, media personalities, women connected to rivals. Drake has apparently spent 2 years building a mental grudge list, and Iceman may genuinely become one of the longest score-settling albums hip-hop has ever seen. But a huge target list doesn't automatically create good music, and albums built entirely around public resentment rarely age gracefully. They become documentation of collapse more than statements of dominance.
And if Drake really does target women heavily throughout the album, which his past behavior strongly suggests he might, the damage is already built in before listeners even press play. Every shot at Savannah James makes the LeBron situation look deeply personal in the worst possible way. Every line aimed at Whitney reinforces Kendrick's criticisms about how Drake handles conflict. Every reference to Rihanna or Serena reminds people he still seems emotionally trapped in relationships that ended years ago. None of that reads as competitive. It reads exactly like the behavior Kendrick exposed publicly. So Drake, if you've genuinely thought beyond the academics' live streams, the ice sculptures, and the cinematic rollout moments, you really need to consider what this album is going to mean for your legacy long term. Not the first week streams, not fan reactions, your actual reputation years from now. Because the album that permanently defines you as someone who couldn't process losing and spent years refusing to grow probably isn't the album you intended to create, but it may very well become exactly what Iceman represents.
Because the albums that truly survive in hip-hop culture usually aren't built around revenge or spectacle. They're built around honesty, vulnerability, artists confronting uncomfortable truths about themselves and their surroundings. And based on everything currently surrounding Iceman, this project feels like the complete opposite of that. It feels like an album built around avoiding self-awareness rather than embracing it. And honestly, that's where the real danger of this era exists. Not in the bars themselves, but in the emotional dishonesty underneath the entire project. And whenever Iceman finally arrives, Whenever the ice melts, the release date appears, and the album actually drops, remember what the rollout looked like. The giant ice structures, the smoke effects, the cinematic episodes, the leaked snippets, the lawsuits happening simultaneously in the background. Remember that the spectacle surrounding the album became louder than the music itself before anyone even heard the songs. And meanwhile, throughout all of this, Kendrick Lamar stayed home, stayed silent, stayed unbothered, and somehow still kept winning.